Hey, it's Willie Armelini from Flowers and Scents with your floral industry buzz. Okay, it's after Valentine's Day and it's time to do an interview. And I thought it'd be most important to do an interview with a retailer because they're the ones that are finally selling the products to the consumers. So I reached out to Chris Drummond from Pennies by Plaza, a retailer from 1937 in the Philadelphia area. They own several stores, and Chris is an active member of SAF and different organizations. So I thought it would be important to talk to him. So without further ado, Mr. Chris Drummond. Chris Drummond, welcome to Flowers and Scents. Thank you for agreeing to be a part of my little experiment here on the internet.
Well, thank you for having me on. I've been following the podcast for quite a while, and it's an honor to be asked to join you. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been a long journey. I started this thing in 2001, and here I am many years later. So, uh, okay, so let's get right into it. Okay, so it's after Valentine's Day. You are a retail florist of some acclaim, and you have several stores. So you should be able to give us a little insight to what you found.
Well, it was a roller coaster ride. Early on, so when I say early, so the last weekend of January and then kind of rolling into February, we kind of look at those 3 or 4 or 5 days and try to decide where sales are going. We also look at the Christmas sales, obviously, see what the previous holiday was and try to get an idea where, did we guess right? Because obviously at that point, everything's purchased, right? It's all coming. And so we're kind of crossing our fingers. And then we also want to know if it's looking like it's going to be super, super busy, do we have to supplement with additional orders last minute? And we were tracking up like double digits, 11, 12% over the same period last year. We're like, wow, we didn't expect that because, everybody's saying we're entering a recession, inflation is really high, nobody has disposable income. And so we thought, this is going to be a down holiday, a couple percent down. Now, what was tempering that number was, moving from a Monday to a Tuesday is typically very good, right? So we're like, all right, because of the economy, we're going to be a bit down, but then we're going to be, so we ended up preparing and buying for flat. And
Based on last year's numbers or where?
Based on last year's numbers. Yep.
Okay.
And then we had this other curveball that was thrown in the Philly market is the Eagles made the Super Bowl. And so that dominates the media. I mean, the Super Bowl dominates the media anyway. And your hometown team is in it. Everybody was talking Super Bowl. Nobody was talking Valentine's Day.
Oh.
So we thought, uh-oh. And sure enough, like the early double-digit increases, I'm talking real early, like the second or third, which doesn't totally impact Valentine's Day because most men are extremely last-minute procrastinators.
Right.
But then we saw, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, just sales were dismal, So the weekend was not good. Saturday and Sunday before, so the 11th and 12th. We got everybody out of here to go home and watch the Super Bowl, which we never get out of 5:30 on the 12th. But everything was pre-produced. The coolers were at 34 degrees. Product quality looked great. We thought we're in good shape. We're in really good shape. As long as we guessed on which SKUs we're going to sell on the website, if we guessed right, we figured we were fine. And then Monday, just like we expected, record day. All the phones lit up, the website went crazy, everything, like everybody's on the phone with customers to the point where we could barely fill orders. Fortunately, we had everything made in the back cooler, had very few one-off oddballs to make custom orders, and we had a few designers available to do that. And we had like a record, probably one of our top, it wasn't our top day of all time, but it was probably number 2 or 3 in the history of the company. So really, really strong day on Monday. And another strong day on Tuesday, definitely bolstered by the good weather in this area. It was phenomenal, low at night of like 35, highs during the day in the 50s. Everybody was out shopping on Tuesday. Walk-in sales were great. With that slow start, really sluggish start, the week before Valentine's Day, very few pre-orders. I mean, as of the 12th, we only had about 45% of our Valentine orders in as of the 12th. I talked to another large retailer here on the East Coast today, and he had 55% as of the 12th. So
Wow.
the rest, half your business essentially comes in on the 13th and 14th. So you got to be ready for it. And the weather really helped, not only from a sales standpoint, but the weather helped from a logistics standpoint.
Yeah, you could make deliveries. Yeah.
We could leave them at the doors. They wasn't below freezing. We
Oh,
could load vans the night before.
and not freeze them.
The
Yeah.
temperature was the same as my cooler.
Perfect.
So it was perfect. So from a logistics standpoint, it was great.
Hmm. Hey, well, that reminds me, you mentioned walk-ins, and I did a little article in my last podcast, I think, was talking about, I had talked to some retailers locally here and about Valentine's, and they were saying, look, you can only do so many deliveries in a given time period. So he said, I can take 1,000 orders, but I can only deliver 600 successfully. So, it's better to stop at 600 because of walk-ins, because I had really never thought about that so much. You said, you get a lot of walk-in traffic on those last 2 days, and you have to have flowers.
Yeah, and you have to have people to serve those
And
customers.
you have
And
to
if,
have
if
people.
they're packing, wrapping, and dispatching drivers, they're not helping customers. So, couple of comments with regard to that. A lot of the larger retailers I talk to, even the mid-sized retailers, they're more and more relying heavily on delivery services such as DoorDash or Roadie.
Hmm.
Um, and we have almost unlimited delivery capacity now. It's crazy. I don't know where
Wow.
they get all these drivers. But we tested Roadie in Valentine's Day, and they're owned by UPS. They're kind of like an Uber or a DoorDash, but they just do packages. And as opposed to DoorDash, they typically take 10 to 18 packages in a route, which allows them to price each package a little less because it's much more efficient.
Right.
Um, and so we tested them. They did very well. We tested them with only maybe 30 or 40 packages last Valentine's Day. They did very well. And so we worked with them, negotiated really good pricing if we used their routed product and uploaded a minimum of 100 at a time.
Okay.
So we had a tiered pricing. If we uploaded 20 at a time, we had one price, 50 at a time, we had another price, 100 at a time was the best discount. Brings it down to like $11 a package.
That's for delivery from them. Yeah.
For delivery, yeah, from Roadie. And so that $11 a package in my market is really competitive.
Yeah. You probably can't deliver that cheap.
Yeah, exactly. So now we do have other expenses. We got to format the CSV file. We have to upload it. We have to separate the packages into their routes because they send it back to us an hour later, routed by what they call batch.
Okay.
And a driver comes in wanting to pick up his batch. But 99% deliverability without complaint. Like that's what they're hitting right now. They're very, knock on wood, very good. So we had a very successful recruitment effort for our own contractors, which are actually less than $11 an hour or $11 a package. So we didn't need to use Roadie for as many packages as we thought we would. So this Mother's Day was 400 for Mother's Day weekend. We gave to Roadie. We only gave them 300 for Valentine's Day because we had a lot more of our own temporary drivers.
Okay.
And I talked to another retailer who did the same with DoorDash. So we have almost unlimited capacity. I thought there's no way that I was uploading these 100 like a group of 100 so fast. Like we gave them two late Monday night, 2 batches of 100, and then for pickup early Tuesday morning. Then we gave them another 100 on Tuesday morning, and they were here within 2 hours. And all the drivers picked up. We could have given them more.
Wow. Yeah, who
The
would have
only
guessed?
reason we cut off is at one point at 11 a.m. we had 100 on designers' tables. Some of them could be pulled from backstock, some were customs, and then we had another 100 in the queue that hadn't even printed yet off the website. And so we just thought, let's just stop it. And But had I had enough staff to get those orders packed and out, I think I would have just uploaded just kept uploading all day to Roadie.
Yeah,
Plus the problem. Go
who
ahead.
would have guessed that all this delivery possibilities? Yeah, I mean, I'm always in amazement when UPS or somebody shows up at my door with a package with a toothbrush in it or something so small that I'm like, how does that work? How can they do that? You know, coming from the transportation business, like, wow, that's incredible. But like you say, it's happening. And that sort of leads me back into because you had to buy all those flowers, and before you had any idea, like you say, your sales were down, or at least your orders were down, you had to bite the bullet and get those flowers in house. So you had to make a decision on buying flowers, 10 days before that or 2 weeks or whatever.
So pretty much we develop our collection, and then we have a certain amount of orders that come to us through the wire services. So then we try to figure out what are they going to send us. So we go to ftd.com, we go to teleflora.com. We know some big senders that send to us. We go to their websites. What do you think is going to be the big seller?
Mm.
So we add those to our production list. And we have a simple Excel spreadsheet that has the recipe for every item, and then we calculate the number of pink roses we need, red roses we need, and so forth. And so my sister Heather and my general manager Samantha, they do all that. And so we figure we're going to be flat. So then they do all their numbers based on flat, and we just have a discussion about which items on our website on our collection are going to be the hot ones. And that's where there's a variable factor that we really don't know. We're pretty good at it. We're not great at it. We did select one dog. We always have one dog, one that we miss on, and there's 30 of them left in the cooler at right now. So what I always tell retailers that are trying to really grow their business, they want to scale. I said, you can't worry about that. You have to just do it. The cost of throwing that product away, even though you invested in a designer to design it, is less than paying overtime or burning out your staff trying to make one at a time at 10 o'clock at night.
Sure. Okay.
And we're buying the product from farms, and then we're bringing it into Miami. So we're buying right, bringing it up on the Miami truck. And so the cost for us is less than some of our competition. And so when I look at the overall cost of goods, the stuff we throw away might be an extra 1.5%, and in the grand scheme of things, that's fine.
But you had to have it.
None of our staff worked longer than a 12-hour day, which is unheard of for us.
It's unheard of.
And I think it's because we pre-produce. Now, that takes me to the quality aspect of the holiday, which I wanted to talk about. I mean, kudos to the farms, kudos to the transportation companies, the post-harvest procedures, the refrigeration, the cooling of the trucks, whatever it is, all this combined is bringing us a much better product than we saw 10 years ago. And I go back to, this was my 39th Valentine's Day. It's hard to believe. I started when I was 15. And back then, I mean, the quality of the product, I mean, the amount of botrytis we saw in roses was up. Because they just didn't know. Cold chain was young. But we started producing Valentine arrangements, on the 29th of January. And, we use a product, Chrysler and Floral Life both do great. I'm not going to promote one over the other. We chose one, but they are great and they're worth the money. People say, oh, they're expensive. That drum of Chrysler is so much money, but it keeps the bacteria out of the water. We don't have to touch the water. We used to change the water. Now, because of the cost of labor, we make that arrangement on the 30th of January. It's full of water. It gets boxed. It gets wrapped in cellophane, and it goes in the cooler, and then it gets delivered on the 14th. And the customers go on Google and give me a 5-star review because it lasted 12 days. And that's just a really great attention to detail from the grower through the importer, everybody who touches that product. And I'm hearing that from a lot of people. I talked to an importer this morning who also owns some farms in Ecuador, and he said it's the best holiday they're hearing from other importers regarding quality ever. Now their sales, he's hearing overall they were down a little bit in units. Production was a little late, which actually he thinks helped because it was
Definitely helped.
fresher.
Yeah.
But he said the same thing as the retailers are experiencing is the product quality is phenomenal. The amount of credits we asked for. I just talked to a big retailer who also buys direct. He's got many more stores than me. And he said he could probably count his credits on one hand. It just wasn't.
No, the flower quality in general, like you say, has just improved because the whole logistics chain and the growers have gotten better at it, and everybody's gotten a little better at it, and it's wonderful. And there was a lot of late production or no production in some cases, which again kept the market tight. The bouquet makers were looking for products, so they bought up anything that was available to fill their orders. So that really kept the market tight, and product was coming in fresh, going out fresh, and so kudos to all those guys as well. I agree because they did a nice job, and the benefit is the consumers get the benefit of it all. That's
Willie, what are you hearing with regard to airlift and cargo space out of South America? Because I heard this holiday it was a non-issue, and it's been an issue for
it was.
4 years straight. It's
It
been a
was a
big issue.
non-issue. And the reason was that production was late. So the growers, the airlines, the truck lines, the cargo agents, everybody was ready for that big anticipated volume, which ultimately didn't happen
Hmm.
in the grand scheme of things. There wasn't a lot of production didn't happen. I mean, the flowers didn't mature. They just didn't produce. So there was a lot less of that product in the marketplace. And yeah, the planes were there. They were flying. Everybody, I talked to my nephews and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, we were done like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Like it never happens. It just kept coming in, going out. So whether that will continue, a lot of flowers went by sea containers. So that changed the dynamic a little bit. Looking for some feedback on those.
So I also heard just another reason it went smoothly is from what I heard from one importer was they noticed many more inspectors at the airport, and they were able to move the product through a lot quicker. So
Okay,
I don't know if that's USDA or Homeland Security. I'm not in that.
it's both. It's both. Yeah. And that sort of leads me back because you are a direct buyer. You and I have crossed paths in Colombia and Ecuador and all sorts of places, and it's unusual at best for retailers to be diving down that level. But you've been doing it for a while. You've got enough stores apparently to make that work, and that sort of really ties you into the business much closer than the average florist.
So my first comment to that would be that a retail florist partnership with their local wholesaler or wholesalers is really, really important. And the wholesaler provides a lot of added value. So I think people that just look at price alone, depending on the type of operation you have and the size of your operation, it may not make sense to buy direct because the added value of the wholesaler is there. For us, we got to a point where our volume was so much that we wanted to go direct, not just for price, but for quality also. Just taking an extra maybe 2 days out of the chain
Yep.
by not having it go to a wholesaler or not having me buy out of their cooler where it might have an extra couple days on it. I like being able to talk to the farm. We deal with smaller family farms for the most part, very small farms in Ecuador and Colombia. And they'll level with me. They'll say like, this is coming into production. I can give you a better deal on this if you go to this color. And so I like having that flexibility. And then knowing the cargo agency, knowing they're going to get it to the airport, I'm going to get a temperature reading of that box when it arrives at the airport, which your nephews do for me. So we know if there's a problem.
Yep.
And then it comes in and it goes on my trucking line and it comes right up to me. So I do like it. It's not for everybody. It's buying direct. And I still, when I started doing this, obviously my local wholesalers were not happy and we had a discussion and, we're still best of friends and I still give them business week in and week out because I want to maintain that relationship. I don't give them a lot of business, but I try to. And the reason is I do need them for some last minute stuff. I mean, if I get a last minute order, they're right there with it. And so I by no means want to tell every florist that, hey, what you got to do to make more money is buy direct. It doesn't work for everybody.
No, and look, you have spent the time and the energy and the money to travel to South America, and not everybody's able or willing to do that.
And
Uh,
it's not worth it if you're doing 600,000 a year,
no,
500,000 a year. It's not worth it.
no.
Once we got our volume up to a certain point, and I, it was interesting. My first trucking line that I would actually ship to me was driving to another small wholesaler north of me, and the second driver that came, the second shipment we got, he said, your volume is bigger than this wholesaler's volume. And so then that a light went off in my head, like, I'm buying the same volume as them. Why am I not buying from the same farms? And so, but it doesn't come without its problems.
Mm,
And, I have to deal with, when I get a notice that something got fumigated and it's not coming, I'm in trouble,
yep.
Whereas a wholesaler, if you have an order with your wholesaler, they're just going to fill that order with the boxes they got from another farm that didn't get fumigated, right? They have that flexibility. So they're definitely, and that's just one example. There's a lot of reasons to partner with your local wholesaler. And some of them do some fantastic farm direct programs right now,
Yeah,
standing
sure.
order programs. So there's a real value in that. So I would say if anybody who's thinking of buying direct, you got to really take that decision very carefully. Look at all the factors and the value that your wholesaler provides.
Absolutely. Hey, as 20 minutes goes fast here, as always with this thing. So let me ask. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but anyway, I wrote a book about my life in flowers. Okay, or I'm writing a book, I should say. I'm pretty close to having it done. But and I let a friend of mine read it, and after reading it, he's somebody not in the business, and he said, the only thing I'm curious about, he said, what is the perfect flower? And I
Huh.
said, I don't know. I said, I think it's different for everybody. I think, my quick synopsis would be that, a grower and a breeder want a product, a flower, or a plant that produces well, has long stems, has a good petal count, maybe fragrance. And a wholesaler and an importer are probably more interested in how long it's going to last and does it transport well? Does it store well? And for a retailer, I don't know. My guess is that you want a flower that doesn't give you credits and people like, sells well. How would you answer that? It doesn't have to be your favorite flower. It just,
Right.
what's the perfect flower?
Oh my gosh, I've never been asked that question.
Me either.
It's an interesting one because there's a lot of factors. There's I would normally say it can't be a rose because roses are subjected to botrytis and there other things too. But however, lately that's not been an issue, and there's some relatively new varieties of roses that the consumers love because of the ruffled petals and the petal count.
Fragrance.
And the fragrance, and they last a long time. So I'm thinking of two right now: Playa Blanca and Free Spirit. And Free Spirit's been around for a while, but when I take those home and put them in a vase, the vase life is tremendous. They look great upon delivery. They hold in that open state with a high petal count for a long time. As long as you change the water in the vase and keep it clean, the customer is going to be thrilled with how long it lasts. And customers absolutely love them.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
I would kind of lean that way. Originally, my first answer when I heard your question was going to be something that has a good value. So a lot of color or blooms for very little money. So I was thinking Alstroemeria,
Alstroemeria.
and it lasts 2 weeks. I mean, it just lasts maybe longer.
Yeah.
So that would definitely be in the top three for me.
Okay.
But that's a really interesting question.
I know. I
People
know.
always ask me, what's your
What's
favorite
your
flower?
favorite flower? Right.
And my answer is always the same. My favorite flower is sold. Anyone that's sold is my favorite.
I like that answer. And with that, sir, I will draw this to a conclusion and thank you for your time and for your busy day. You can go back to selling flowers and running around the cooler. And oh, one more question. So Dottie was your mom, I guess.
Dottie was my mom. She passed away in 2005. She bought a store in 1983 from my uncle. So I'm
Okay.
technically a third generation florist because my
I thought
grandfather
so.
started doing flowers in the 30s. Um, but
And that was
our
Penny's.
business,
That was
so
Penny's.
no, it was, so that was Kremp. So my mom's a Kremp.
Oh,
So Charles Kremp, who you know,
oh,
is
I know.
my mom's older brother.
Okay.
And then Jeffrey Kremp, her younger brother, runs Jeff's Flowers, of course, in Hampton Roads, Virginia.
Okay.
So he's down there. So all of my grandfather's three children all have separate successful flower
Yeah,
businesses.
funny.
Um, the way we got Pennies was my grandfather was born in, or had his first store in Glenside. My mom was born there, grew up with the Pennypacker family. So Vince Pennypacker, whose nickname was Penny, started that business in 1937 in Glenside. And so we knew the family really well. And since I was a little child, I've always been jealous of that location. Beautiful location in a shopping village, the corner of Main and Main, just a perfect. So
Yep.
I had told the brothers years ago, I said, if you ever want to sell, don't put it on the market. Just come talk to me. Let's
Okay.
put a deal. And so we did. And so we acquired Pennies 4 years ago. And their name was so iconic in the Philly market that we just added it onto our name and became Pennies by Plaza Flowers. And that's where we are now.
I like it. I like it. And unfortunately, the Eagles did not win. I don't know if that was good for sales or bad for sales and flowers,
Well, I
but
think it's good because all of my staff showed up. They didn't party long into the evening and call out sick on Monday the 13th. So I guess I'll take it.
all right, sir. Well, thank you for your time and appreciate this opportunity to talk to you and get to know you a little better. So stay well, and I'll be publishing this next week.
Thanks, Willie. All the best to you and your family.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Bye bye.
Have a good day.